Did you have a nice little Christmas poem to read tonight?
Yeah.
What is it?
I don't know.
Jingle bells.
Yeah.
Dan smells.
Yeah.
It would have been nice if you would have. What's the big Christmas poem that the old guy always reads in front of the fireplace? The
Night Before Christmas. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
We would have been creative. We would have created that for this, but
Yeah. I was going to say there's something with two different Midwinter's Nights drams. What's after or before the Partridge in the Pear Tree? Two
turtle doves.
Two turtle doves. So two Midwinter's Nights drams. Three Glencairns.
Ooh, that
two
would
probably work.
Midwinter's Nights drams. And I don't know what one is.
One hangover.
One hangover.
Yeah.
One successful podcasting year.
It's a Christmas miracle.
It kind of is. A podcast about bourbon and the ones who drink it. This is Bourbon Matters. Welcome to Bourbon Matters. I'm Jake.
I'm Dan.
And we're joined by Jake Cigelnik.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Cigelnik.
Cigelnik. I was say you screwed it up
damn
last
it.
time.
I know.
Learn your friends' names.
I flipped it around. That was like, I know I got it wrong last time, and then I couldn't remember.
Yeah, it's all good.
Good
Jesus.
research you do for this show.
I know. So yeah, tonight we are doing a double header because we thought it'd be fun to do Midwinter Nights Dram. And then Gold Eagle actually did a barrel pick with Dancing Goat that is a poor man's Nights Dram. Just basically a knockoff of
Basically a knockoff, but
the High West rye. So we thought this would be a fun final episode for the year.
Right by the holidays.
Yeah, right by the holidays.
it's a great holiday pour.
Yeah.
Lots of people have a lot of people that ask for this bottle just so they can share it with relatives during the Christmas time.
Yeah.
Family get-togethers and whatnot. Not necessarily because it is a good bottle, but we're about to find out.
Yeah. So yeah, it's so Midwinter's Nights Dram is from High West.
Yep, we did. One of our earlier episodes was on them. And
Yeah.
they're out of Park City.
Yeah.
Beautiful distillery, by the way.
Yeah, I want to get out there at some point.
Right at the bottom of a ski lift and a great resort right there. So it's a
it
cool
looks super
experience.
cool.
Yeah.
Well, you have the distillery there, and then you have the High West Saloon.
Yeah,
downtown.
they have like 3 or 4 different locations, but the actual distillery is right at the base of a ski lift in Park City, and I was there 2 years ago, and I mean it's literally 10 yards away from a lift to hop up on the mountain. So have a couple pours of whiskey and get right back out there. Grab some lunch at the distillery and whatnot.
Isn't that what happened to Sonny Bono?
You're asking the wrong person.
He died in a skiing accident.
Oh,
Come on. you
in
guys are
Utah?
bad. No, not in Utah. Somewhere else. Did you go skiing when you were out there?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
Ski or snowboard?
Snowboard. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
How are the slopes?
I mean, this particular resort was incredible. I was there for 2 whole days, and we still didn't have time to hit every run.
Nice.
Yeah, I mean, spending a morning, probably 3 or 4 hours at High West didn't help that, but but no, it's if I had to pick one place to snowboard at for the rest of my life, this would definitely be it out of all the places I went to. So yeah.
Nice. Yeah, I went to Park City in high school.
You must have went to the most bougie high school. Jesus Christ.
No, with my family, like on vacation. not with the high school.
I don't know. Some of these high schools these days take some pretty...
Well, yeah, but no.
It's our tax dollars.
Or no, it wasn't high school. It was middle school. But anyway, I had never skied before or snowboarded. So I learned how to ski at the resort. And like did the bunny hill like a million times because I couldn't really do anything else. But it was really cool. It's a really cool town, and it's gorgeous there.
Yeah, it's like a high-end, old-school ski town.
Yeah. So yeah, and then the other bottle we're gonna do is the Dancing Goat, which we just talked. Did we talk about the tasting? No, we haven't yet.
No, I wasn't there.
So we went to a tasting at Gold Eagle with Dancing Goat, and it's Nick, right? Is the distiller and owner. And he walked us through a few different of their rye offerings. Then we did a single barrel pick between 4 different barrels.
Yeah, 4
That
different
were all
barrels.
very unique.
Different. Yeah.
So that was pretty cool. It seems like he's doing a lot of really interesting experiments, and everything we tried was pretty darn good.
Yeah, I mean it's definitely a distillery to keep your eye on. They were actually the creators of rum chata, so they kind of got that out of the way, got a bunch of money from that, and then that was right when MGP was clearing out most of their inventory, and nobody really wanted MGP, so they just bought a ton of experimental mash bills from MGP, and now they're sitting on a bunch of 10 to 15 year MGP, and they also have a lot of their own 6 to 7 year old rye whiskeys, and bourbon I think's getting up to like 5 or 6 years. So they have
nice.
a lot of cool stuff to keep an eye on. They do a lot of unique, interesting finishes, like some chocolate bitters finish, cherry bitters finish.
Yeah, the
and
cherry
obviously
bitters one was
really
out there.
It was intense. Yeah.
It tasted like cinnamon candy.
To me, it tasted like a really, really good Fireball.
Yeah.
Like Fireball without the sugar and
Yeah.
without the sweetness. Like it was just a straight whiskey, but it tasted like Fireball, and it was intense. It was different.
Yeah. It actually tasted pretty similar to the Barnstormer one. Because at Barnstormers they actually vacuum distill
all their additive stuff.
So it's like basically pure flavor extract that they put in the whiskey without sugar and everything. So yeah, I mean that one was surprising. It's not what I would have expected from a cherry bitters barrel finish, but it was pretty good. Like cinnamon candy's not my cup of tea.
It's not mine either.
Somebody who's like really into that, I can see like being blown away.
Yeah,
you know?
I'm kind of glad we didn't pick that one, only because again, it's not my thing. But like they're like that, the description, the flavor profile was absolutely on point. It was just what you would kind of expect if you were told this is a cinnamon red hot whiskey.
Yeah. Then the one we picked was their Limousin Rye, that was finished
Brandy barrels.
in brandy barrels. Yeah, and that one was excellent.
Yeah.
It actually to me tasted a little bit similar to the honey finish barrel pick that you guys did with them as well. But there's a little bit more depth, I think, from the brandy.
Yeah.
That like you still got that like nice light sweetness. But like the fruitiness of the brandy kind of came through too.
it's I think it's still sweet. It's not as sweet maybe as the honey, and you get a little bit more of the rye, a little bit more of the spice. You can taste the whiskey a little more. I think the stickiness in the honey kind of takes away some of that, but yeah, no, this is, I mean, it's going to be a great pour, and the best thing about Dancing Goat is their price is right too. So
yeah,
for under $60, you can get a 7-year barrel proof rye whiskey, you know.
Yeah, and they're right outside of Madison.
Yeah, they're about 10 miles south of Madison.
Right.
So
it's Cambridge.
I believe that's it. Yeah,
I think that's what the town's called.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think we're gonna, try and get up there. Nick said they also do a like custom gin making class, which sounds really cool.
I mean that's one of the coolest rooms I've been to at a distillery. Like there's 16 mini stills. And so you go in there and you have your own still, and then like on a miniature scale, you pick your botanicals, you put it in the still and distill just like how you would on a bigger scale. But you get to make your own bottle and botanical combination and whatnot. So that's super cool.
Yeah, it's
choose
pretty
whatever proof you want and take your bottle home. But yeah, that looked, when I was there, they were like just starting their first test classes on it, and they said within a couple days they'd be up and running with it. And
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and Nick's presentation was awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Is like, dude, we're kind of whiskey nerds, and Nick is like extremely technical.
Very. I mean,
So
that
Dan would
was,
have had a field day.
out of
No,
all
he
the
couldn't nerd at all.
out of all the master classes we've done, he by far went into more like nerdy scientific terms than anyone, and I think he probably lost 3/4 of the crowd really early on that presentation.
Yeah,
But,
I mean, he was getting into like some of the like chemical engineering aspects of making whiskey, which like some of the stuff that he talked about was like or like some of the like techniques that he said that they do versus other places were like things I had heard were like frowned upon because it's not like the traditional way of doing things, and he like explained like, yeah, it's all BS because of this and this, and like
he had all the science to back up all his arguments and everything that they were doing.
yeah, it was pretty cool. I want to reach out to him and see if we can get him on one time.
I'm sure
to talk,
he'd be down for it.
Yeah,
and he's kind of like a goony, fun, like just down to earth guy, and you wouldn't expect that he has all that scientific distilling knowledge. But he knows a lot when it comes to distilling. So
yeah, his family story is pretty cool too. His grandpa was a chemical engineer and worked all over the world in distilleries. And his dad was it Jim Beam for a very long time,
for Jim Beam for
doing
like 20 years.
Mostly I think marketing stuff was it, and then him and his dad invented rum chata,
right,
and sold that, and then started Dancing Goat. So it's pretty cool family lineage through the whiskey industry. So
right.
Yeah, that was a super fun masterclass. That was a good one.
Yeah, good.
So with you said they bought a lot of experimental stuff from MGP. Are they also using that in the experimental finishes, or are they just using their own stuff for the experimental finishes?
They got a combination of everything.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I mean the barrel pick experience is very cool because normally when you go to a distillery, they have a couple samples laid out and you get to choose from there. But at Dancing Goat, you're just walking through their rick house, and any barrel you see that looks interesting, point at and say you want to taste, and they thieve it right out of the barrel, and that's kind of how they do their picks. So to find the honey barrel, it was actually a Traverse City barrel that was used by a local honey place, and then they reached out to Dancing Goat and offered them the actual barrel, and they were like, sure, we can try and throw some whiskey in it and see what happens. So there, nowhere on the barrel did it say honey, but it just caught our eye that like, why would they have a Traverse City barrel? And then Nick said, oh, that's a honey barrel that we have, and immediately we're like, all right, we'll take that. And I don't think he really knew what he had. There was actually another restaurant that had dibs on it, and they kind of dragged, and they saw that we sold out of our share of it the same day, so then they offered us the rest of the barrel because the other restaurant was dragging on it. But yeah, they just have a lot of different things that you wouldn't normally see at a typical distillery, and the fact that they have their own whiskey plus a bunch of different MGP experimental mash bills just makes it that more interesting.
Yeah. Probably gives them a little bit of play too, and what they can do,
Right.
It's fun, but then it's also got to be like the downside of it. So when you do some of that experiment, you taste it, and you're like, well, shit, that was the way.
Yeah. Which is kind of what this poor man's dram is here, which we'll get into in a second.
Yeah. So yeah, let's. We've got the High West right now.
Yep.
Dan's already gone into it a little bit.
Yeah, it's their Park City. The Midwinter Nights Dram is basically just their Rendezvous Rye, which was formerly MGP, and I think this might have been their first time with their own full.
Yeah, that's probably right.
Because the big hype, or not the big hype, I guess the big controversy around this bottle this year is it was always hard to find, and it was always an $80 bottle, and this year it almost doubled in price. And it's probably partly to demand, and then I think a lot because of their own stuff, but it's their normal Rendezvous Rye. I was doing a little research on it. So in the past, their Rendezvous Rye was a mash bill that was a blend of MGP rye, so 95% rye, 5% malted barley, And then their High West distilling was 80% rye, 20% malted rye. I could not find the mash bill for this year's Midwinter Night Dram, but if it's all their own, it might just be straight 80% rye, 20% malted rye.
Yeah.
Which on the nose, it definitely has a different nose than the MGP rye.
Yeah.
It's not as spicy as typical MGP.
Yeah. Like I almost smell like
Definitely tastes there's a little more malt in there.
it smells to me almost like juicy fruit or like bubble gum or something like that.
It's got something on the nose I can't pick up or I can't quite place right now. It was so when we talked about being out in Park City, my parents were out there in September. I'm like, hey, can you stop by the distillery and see if they're out yet at the distillery? And they were about a month too soon, so I didn't get one then. Luckily, I was able to get one here. But yeah, there's something on the nose I can't quite. Almost like a perfuminess to it.
Yeah, like there's some kind of fruit that I can't.
I'm getting a lot of cherry.
Yeah.
Cherry, it smells like almost like
Maybe some white
peach or something.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Like almost like a peach cobbler type thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely not your normal MGP rye by any means.
No.
Yeah.
I'd be almost shocked if this was actually MGP.
Usually the MGP has all those like floral kind of notes going on, and
This is, by the way, this is their Act 10, which is the 10th release of their Midwinter Night Dram. I did read. My bottle has a different scene number than yours, but the scenes don't mean a damn thing from what their website says. Yeah, but the Act is what year? So last year's was Act 9. This is Act 10.
Okay.
Which if this is a 10-year-old, it makes sense. Or the 10th year, this makes sense. It's probably all their own stuff by this point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would assume. I mean, they're distilling a lot, and I don't know when that time hit that they're gonna, start to be all their own with all that distillate, but they've really cranked it up.
It does. I don't know if you guys are getting on the palate. Kind of It's kind of got that tannin like a wine, the dry wine. It takes a little bit out of your tongue. It just kind of draws a little bit of moisture out. Is the first thing I noticed about it.
And the port's definitely present.
It's for sure present. I get it more so on the finish, kind of more of the spice and the port kick in on the back end. Like up front, it almost drinks like a bourbon. And then a lot of the spice and a lot of the fruitier, portier notes kick in on the back.
Yeah, you can tell it's a rye on the finish.
Yeah.
It's harder to tell on the palate.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
And let me also say, too, that I thought last year's Midwinter was absolutely awful.
I don't think I tried last year's.
I tried it. I tried it one time, and I'll hardly ever pour, but Midwinter last year was one that I did.
Good.
Yeah, no.
And that was like, I think last year, I mean, like, we haven't been hardcore into whiskey that long.
No.
Like last year was the first time I had ever heard of it. I know Roberto tried really hard to get one.
It's always been one of his favorites.
Yeah.
I've just kind of seen them go downhill every single year for the past 3 or 4 years.
Okay.
And I think that's because the MGP that they're using is getting younger and younger. Or they're starting to blend in more of their own stuff, and it's just not the same as what it was
it's not
4 or
like
5
gelling.
years ago. Yeah. But it still has that cult hype following.
Yeah. I mean, they market it as a winter Christmas drink. I mean, it's snowed a little bit today. It definitely has kind of some of that holiday cheer feel in it. It's
Yeah, I mean, just the name and the label itself is really nice. And like I said earlier, I have so many people that ask for this bottle just because it's become a tradition to share it with friends and family on their Christmas parties and whatnot. And they'll even admit it's not, not a great bottle. It's not something that they would normally chase down, but it's just become a tradition to share with friends and family during the holidays. So it's kind of got a nostalgic following to it.
Yeah. It does carry some of those like baking spice notes, for like not quite gingerbready, but
But it's there. It makes you think of
Yeah.
the
I mean,
holidays.
it's definitely kind of got like a
It's warming.
kind of note.
Mhm.
Yeah, overall. Yeah, it's a good like fireplace
Yeah.
drink.
Yeah, the more and more I think the more I drink ports, the less and less I think I'm liking port finishes. I think but that might just be driven by there's so many other good finishes out there right now. There's been so many people doing so many different finishes for the longest time. Port was the best finish or the most sought after finishes.
Well, Angel's Envy's port finish,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, they really set the bar.
They were like
and,
the first
yeah,
one.
got everyone onto the whole wine finish thing, which I've never really caught on about myself. I'm not a big wine finish bourbon fan or whiskey fan.
No, the honey adds a unique flavor to it. I've tried some maple cask finishes that always add a little bit of nice flavor to it. I mean, you're not getting a ton out of it, but I don't know. It's interesting.
I like it. It's I don't know if I maybe have one or two at a time. This isn't one where I'd be like pounding it.
Well, so I was gonna say like this is definitely better than last year's from what I remember. I thought last year's was kind of just a hot mess, and it just tasted like they added some port whiskey or port wine to some whiskey.
Oh, okay,
But because this doubled in price, I'm still salty about it. I don't think it's not worth $150.
Yeah, I don't know if I don't think it's worth $150.
$150 and the hunt.
And the hunt.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
$80 and the hunt. I can see that, especially the problem I think part of it they are aware of is those people that are just looking for the holidays.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And
they know it'll sell out no matter what they charge.
Yeah.
So
it's that it's not a bad whiskey by any means. It's the hunt and the price tag is putting it up there with some of the other things. And I mean, you guys, like we've talked about before, you guys will always throw it on the website, say, hey, this is in order online, and it's gone within 20, 30 minutes.
I mean, for this one, I legitimately thought it would last all day long because the price hike. And we also got 60 bottles this year, and I think last year we only got 30. And it's still sold out within 5 minutes, which is insane.
Yeah, that's...
Because I missed it, I think.
I mean...
Because I'm usually at work when the notification comes in.
Yeah, I mean...
you got to be fast.
I wasn't... it was like 2 or 3 in the afternoon, and I just figured it's afternoon. People are working. Like, no one's gonna see this right away. This is probably gonna be around all night and maybe last until the next morning. And nope, within 5 minutes they were all gone.
Yeah,
that just shows the bourbon craze is still as strong.
Oh
as
it
has been over the last 10 years. Or the whiskey craze.
And we were one of the first places to get it. I didn't see anyone else get it before us, so that's just all people buying it blind without even trying it.
Yeah.
Which is cool because it shows that there's such a following for these bottles, and it kind of builds a community. But at the same time, I don't know. I wouldn't jump on this one without tasting it first.
Yeah. And when we did High West the first time, I know I wasn't a big fan of their Rendezvous Rye, and it's not because I just hate ryes. There's ryes that I like, and there's this, and I wasn't a big fan of their Rendezvous, and this is basically just a port finish Rendezvous.
Yeah, the one we tried though probably wasn't theirs.
That's true. That was early on.
Yeah, it was the
old
old style label still, and it was I don't know, that's a pretty available one, so it's probably been sitting for a while, but yeah.
I think too, because what they just released, what was it, a couple months ago? They had like that smoke one,
the campfire.
Oh yeah.
It almost feels like they have good whiskey. That's not that they don't have good whiskey. It almost feels like they're banking on everything on the Midwinter Night Dram hype. And here's another change of here's a smoked whiskey now.
Well, so the campfire was actually the same story. Like, it sold out the same day we got it. The only one that doesn't anymore is that Rendezvous Rye. And all those whiskeys, Rendezvous, Boo Rye, Campfire, they used to be year-round on the shelf all the time. And they recently made them seasonal releases. So I think Boo Rye's in the spring, Campfire's like end of summer, Rendezvous early winter or late fall, and then Midwinter obviously in the winter time. So yeah, I think it's cool that they're doing different seasonal releases. It'd be nice to see more distilleries do that because it does kind of create a following around these whiskeys, especially if you try one that you really like and you see it gets released, you're going to grab a bottle so you have a backup or have one around, But
so what's their normal? I mean, the double rye is always available.
Yeah, and then
the American single malt is a special release too.
That's also a special release. And then the Prairie Bourbon.
Oh, Prairie Bourbons, they're like
So
standard
Prairie
now,
Bourbon
right?
and Double Rye, those are their standard releases. Which the Double Rye is great for $35.
I love the double rye.
Yeah,
It's so good.
It is.
That was like one of the first whiskeys I bought in college that wasn't like Jack Daniel's, and I was like blown away. I was like, this is so good.
It's a great intro rye too, because I'm pretty sure it has a higher rye content, but that double barrel finishing takes away a little bit of the spice and adds a little more sweetness. So it's a really great intro rye into higher.
And that was back in the day when they used to actually handwrite the proof on the bottles and everything.
So speaking of doubles and then rye, I forgot about this when we started. Whiskey Advocate had their top 20 bourbons of the year come out, and then Breaking Bourbon had their top few bourbons of the year come out. And I just want to say, their top bourbon on Breaking Bourbon, who we use a lot for research and things, was the Old Elk Double Wheat, which in our Old Elk bracket was by far and away my favorite over the rye. You and Roberto both went with the rye.
Yeah.
But Breaking Bourbon followed my lead with that.
I don't know what you're trying to say.
Yeah, where are you going there?
Where I'm going with that is you and Roberto are wrong. And I demand my respect.
Well, the rye was not a new release, right? This year?
That's
been established. The double wheat was a new release this year, which is probably why they picked it. So if the rye would have came out this year, they probably would have picked the rye.
Before we switch over to Dancing Goat, the other thing we hit on the head was when we tried Jack Bonded for the first time this year. And we said, so there's things I have an issue with on that, because Whiskey Advocate had that as their number one bourbon this year. And they gave it 97 points.
Yeah.
I think 97 points is very, very high. I still think...
Oh, I agree. I love it.
I still think... but like when I rank things in my head, what's my favorite bourbon of all time? Sazerac 18, Pappy 12...
Well, geez.
Things like that. Well, what are you going to give those?
Fuck.
What are you going to give those for a rating though? 99.
You tater.
Well, what's your favorite bourbon, Jake?
I don't know if I could pick a favorite bourbon. It would definitely be one of our store picks, and I'll admit, obviously, I'm biased.
That's fine.
I picked a barrel, so
it's
going to line up with my palate.
So what would you give that out of a scale of 100?
The Jack Bonded.
Yeah. Well, what would you give your store?
Not
pick?
a 9. Oh.
Like, would you give your store picks a 99?
Well, we're gonna at the end of the episode, we're gonna do our bourbons or our whiskeys of the year.
Oh, I jumped the gun.
Well, you didn't say what yours was.
Oh, well, mine was okay. So I think it's obvious.
I'm gonna have to
think
about it now till the end of the episode because that's a tough question.
Yeah.
But no, I would not give Jack Bonded a 97. When I first tried it, I did really enjoy it, and I also really enjoy the Jack Daniel's flavor profile. Not your old number 7, but like some of the barrel proofs are really good.
The barrel proof single barrels are fantastic.
Like some of those I think rank up there with George Stagg in terms of flavor, and side by side I've had some blinds where some single barrels have beaten out George Stagg. But you gotta, look at that list. Like, it's all the major big companies and big distilleries. You gotta assume that there's some kind of back pocket favors going on in order to get on the list and rank highly up there.
I did see a meme that was like from like a bourbon account. It had like their logo on the guy, and it said like, "I'm the biggest dumbass in the world." And then it showed the Whiskey Advocate lineup, and they were like, here, you can have the crown.
That's funny.
I will say I've lost all respect for Jack Daniels for the little I had for them, anyways. With their taking the Bad Spaniels company to the Supreme Court. You seen that?
No.
There's a dog chew toy company. I think it's called Bad Spaniels,
Okay.
as in like bad Cocker Spaniels, and it has like a very Jack Daniels feel, and it's Bad Spaniel. It's a dog chew toy that looks like a square liquor bottle, and it's called Bad Spaniels Old Number 2.
Okay.
It's an old dog pooping. And Jack Daniels tried to say that they are infringing on their intellectual property. They lost in court, and now Jack Daniels is taking this to the Supreme Court, which is a great use of our government's time.
Their bottle's trademarked, though, isn't it?
The bottle, but there's parody law. They're not.
Yeah, there's parody law,
which is your right to free speech. So,
but I don't know. You're not allowed to profit off of that.
Well, Saturday Night Live does it all the time.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah,
but,
I don't know. That'll be
I
interesting.
think that's something we need a little more info on.
Yeah,
it's
discuss
a
and
bad. It's just like I don't think they're from what I've read, it seems like Jack Daniel's just out of tune with today's how people feel today. They're trying to take down a small dog toy company by going to the Supreme Court, which seems like they're trying just to price out of go to high enough courts, need high enough lawyers that they can't. Well, liars are lawyers. But all right.
Hey, so yeah, this is the Dancing Goat now.
This is the Limousin Rye Dancing Goat.
So I think we have to talk about the color before.
Yes, this is Coca-Cola.
Before we taste it.
This might be darker than Coca-Cola.
It's like
glowing.
red wine dark.
It's glowing red. Like there's just a hue to it. Like if you got poured this and nobody told you it was whiskey, you would think this is red wine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's bright red. And there's definitely like a glow. So before we got these bottles in, we always talked about how this would be a great blind with Midwinter, but you can't blind these because the color is just so different. You would know immediately. And what's crazy about this barrel is they said it was a completely dried port barrel. It was just a very, very old barrel that had a ton of character to it. And most of the time when you finish whiskey in a wine barrel, there's a little bit of wine left in the bottom, so that kind of adds to the color. But this barrel was completely dried out to the point that they almost didn't want to use it because they thought it would be, suspect to leaks.
Yeah.
But they just threw the whiskey in there and let it kind of do its thing. And just because of how old this barrel is, there's probably just so much port soaked in the wood staves that it just gave off this bright red glowing tint to the whiskey.
Oh, that's insane too, because I've seen some barreling with some older barrels, and even just some barrels that have sat out in a warehouse for a few months, and even you're playing with them forever to get them to seal up right on a brand new barrel that's been sitting in a warehouse outside for a few months. Like, it's the fact that it's that old. I get a lot of if you go really, really deep down into it, I can get the port, but I get a lot of maple syrup on the very top.
I don't get the same kind of fruity notes that I did on the High West. Like the port's there a little bit.
I got to dig way deep.
You got to really.
It's more like darker berries.
Yeah.
Currants.
Like blackberry, currant. Yeah.
Yeah.
Dark raspberries, figs. Dates.
Yeah, those are like
Plum.
the kind of I like those like darker fruit flavors. That's like where my sweet spot is on.
Maybe some blueberries.
Funny thing is, I like those smells, but I don't like a lot of those fruits.
Yeah.
I'll eat dates if they're like filled with goat cheese.
I love
I'm not a big
dates.
I'm not a big fig or plum person. Or currant person.
I love plums.
Yeah, you would.
I don't know why. I just love them. I wanted to make plum ice cream this year.
The last time I've had a plum,
but I missed when the good plums came in, so I'll have to wait till next year.
He called me bougie. He called me bougie earlier, and now he's talking about good plums.
It's sometime in the summer.
Okay.
There's like there's some South American country that they come from,
Mm-hmm.
and those are like the best ones. My uncle was telling me this.
Right. I'll have to keep an eye out
Because he
They're
made
similar.
it. He made plum ice cream last year,
Mhm.
and it was like blow your mind, amazing.
Yeah.
So I was like, "Well, I'm gonna do that," and then I totally missed when they came in.
So these have completely different noses and completely different flavor profiles from each other.
Yeah,
So the reason though you're calling it a Poor Knight's Dram is just because of the port finish.
Yeah, I mean, mostly just because the timing kind of lined up. Like we knew we were gonna
Right.
get this the same time Midwinter came out. We knew Midwinter would probably sell out pretty quick, and there would be more people looking for it. And also, when it comes to finished whiskeys, especially wine finished whiskeys, I just don't see the need to charge so much. Like a lot of these port barrels and finishing barrels are expensive to get from these other countries. You have to buy the barrel, you have to ship it over. A lot of times you have to repair the barrel to make sure it doesn't leak. But at the same time, I'm not sold on the fact that you need an old whiskey to put in there or a really good, base whiskey, because a lot of times when you put it into the finishing barrel kind of takes over and works its magic.
yeah,
And Dancing Goat, I mean, this is really a 7 or 8 year rye whiskey, which they can't call it that because they do a ton of different finishing. It sits in their Limousin Cognac Solera method for 6 months before it gets bottled. Then they put it back into a bourbon cask, and then they put it into the port cask. So there's a lot of different finishing techniques where they can't call it a 7 or 8 year, but this is really a 7 or 8 year whiskey finished in the port, and it's a $60 bottle.
yeah,
And I mean, I think the base on their rye whiskey is very good, but you can kind of take something that's not as good and finish it, and it can turn into a good pour. And the High West, especially switching and transferring to their own distillate and not the MGP stuff, you would have to assume it's younger, probably somewhere in the 5 to 7 year range. And then to put it in a port cask and charge $150 a bottle, I don't know, it just doesn't add up to me.
yeah. I mean, it's gonna sound a little condescending, but in a lot of ways, I think the wine barrel finish is kind of cheating in a lot of ways, because it's like you're imparting so much flavor that you can, like you said, kind of take a like mediocre whiskey and bump it way up in terms of
which
like flavor value.
Isn't always a bad thing. Like if you taste something and you think, all right, this is very dry, let's get a sherry cask or a port cask and let's throw it in there. And a lot of times it makes for a great whiskey, but why do you have to charge $150 a bottle for that? And our kind of idea here was let's appeal to more people that might have wanted a Midwinter and missed out because of the price or missed out because it's hard to get. And here's something that you can enjoy, for a third of the price and still be a flavorful, good sipper.
Yeah. So, I mean, this one, I think the port's there, but I feel like it it integrates a little bit better with the other flavors going on. And I some of that like stone fruit kind of comes through too. Like the plum and the maybe not peach, but like maybe like apricot or something in there a little bit.
I would say like more curranty, more
the berries
darker fruits, berries,
there.
blueberry, raspberry, and based on the color, you would think that this is going to be so port heavy, but the flavor is pretty balanced for how dark this color is.
It's a lot harder on this one to pick out the port than it was on the High West, in my opinion, at least. Which, like you said, is very counterintuitive.
It's very deceiving.
The color.
Very deceiving if you see the color on this and then taste it.
Yeah, I mean, I do feel like this one drinks a little bit drier than the High West, but I don't necessarily dock it in that respect. I feel like it kind of needs that because it is pretty fruity, and it kind of needs something to kind of counterbalance that.
Yeah.
But like if you're a like Cabernet or like Merlot drinker, this is like your kind of whiskey. Like it drinks very much like one of the darker red wines.
Mm-hmm.
The finish on this I enjoy more than the Midwinter Night's Dram.
It's much more intense and lingering.
It comes back to the lips at the end too.
Yeah,
like it hits it goes. It's like it works your way from the back of the mouth to the front of the mouth, and make all your jokes that you want that I said that. But that's fine.
It definitely coats it coats your entire mouth, whereas the Midwinter kind of went down like your average whiskey, where you taste it a little bit on the side of your cheeks, and then it goes down the throat, and it lingers a little bit on the back. But this thing just coats your entire mouth. You're tasting it for 2-3 minutes after a sip. And
in terms of like viscosity, it almost drinks like a fruit juice.
Yeah, and
like
it
without all the sweetness,
right?
But like that, the viscosity is very similar.
And it drinks like it could be like 60 proof, but it's 107 proof.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, this is a pretty good, bottle all around. This one is gone though, right?
It's gone, and I was gonna say like I didn't even get one for myself.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's how gone it is. Normally, there's a couple, at least 3 or 4 set aside for the bar, or for employees and whatnot. But this one was completely gone.
Just think, Jake, that you're in the one position where you can actually sell alcohol to Gold Eagle.
You could.
Yeah. Do I have? I don't know if I have.
No, you just give them an open bottle discount.
We'll take it for the bar.
Yeah, I don't think I bought a duplicate of this one.
It would take you about 30 minutes to figure out if you did.
Yeah, no. The studio's a mess right now.
It could still be sitting on the Gold Eagle shelf.
Yeah, so between the two, I am gonna. They're both very good.
So if you would have to do this blind, and I'm talking blind, like with a blindfold on, you couldn't see what's in your glass, and they're very different pours.
Right.
Knowing the price, I'm of course going with the Limousin.
Yeah,
but
the Dancing Goat's definitely better for the value, like by far. I'm kind of leaning towards the Dancing Goat in terms of flavor profile also. It's a little bit like the Midwinter is pretty heavy. And in my opinion, the Dancing Goat is even heavier, and that's kind of what I like in a whiskey. I think the Dancing Goat is a little bit better balanced too. So yeah, I'm gonna go with that one.
I think I like the Midwinter's nose better.
Okay.
It just has more of that holiday spice smell. It smells like a Christmas candle.
Yeah, I would probably agree.
I'd say the palates are very similar. I like the finish on the Dancing Goat. So if you figure in the price and the availability, well, technically, Jake, Dancing Goat is harder to find than Midwinter Night's Dram because you can't find it.
It was that's the thing about single barrel. It's a one time. It's one barrel.
Mm-hmm.
This is one that they can take another port barrel and put their whiskey in, and it's probably going to come out completely different.
Yeah.
So, and Nick at the tasting commented about this barrel, the guy from Dancing Goat, about how this was like one of his favorite barrels he's ever tasted out of their distillery. So this was, definitely something special.
Yeah. So how did you guys come across this one? Did he point this out to you?
Yeah, this one he pointed out.
Okay.
The honey one we found, and this one he was like, "Hey, you guys need to try this."
Was that at the same visit?
The same visit.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. He said, "You guys need to try this. This is probably my favorite barrel that we have right now." And it was mainly because of how dry that barrel was.
Yeah.
And the whiskey just turned out. I mean, it's like black cherry, glowing red. just the color on it is
Yeah.
unbelievable.
Yeah.
Yeah, as it looks like I bought black cherry juice for my Halloween party to make a cocktail, and this looks like black cherry juice.
Yeah.
It's so red. It's like
Nice. Well, no, both very good pours.
Yeah.
I is Midwinter Night Dram overhyped more for the sentimental value of it? Probably. Is it overpriced because of that? Hells yes, it is.
yeah, at this point,
absolutely.
I think like at $80, I think it's reasonable. At $150 or $160 or whatever. Bless you. Yeah, I think it's a little bit too expensive now.
Yeah, I don't think
This
I'm
will
gonna
probably
search-
be the only one I get.
Yeah.
I'm glad it's number 10. It's a nice round number. Call it there.
Yeah.
But
yeah, I don't think I'll probably search it out for me for next year.
yeah.
I mean, there's so many different whiskeys and so many different finishes and so much good stuff going on that it's if it's hard to find and expensive and then you're not blown away by it, it's probably not worth
Yeah.
the second run on
I'll
it.
probably
Yeah, no.
bust this one out for the Christmas party.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's a great bottle to have to share.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
you know, that was kind of our thought too with the sticker and calling this the poor man's dram. Is,
Yeah.
Careful. Don't do that with Jack Daniels. They'll take you to Supreme Court.
Yeah, we got to be careful with this stuff. But it was gone in one day. It's not going to happen again. So,
So whiskeys of the year then? I guess that
Yeah,
jumped
so
the gun.
so I think Jenna's gonna put together some reels of our whiskeys of the year. I'll go first because I'm talking. So I went with the Hard Truth Sweet Mash Rye. We tried it at Sam's tasting event in like March or was it May? Earlier in the spring.
It was March. It was right before Easter.
Yeah,
It was
and
Black Friday, I think.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was on Good Friday.
Yeah. I'm sorry, we just had Black Friday.
Yeah.
I get screwed up.
But yeah, I was totally blown away by the Hard Truth. I think the one that we tried there was batch number 2. I've got the signed bottle by one of the owners back here.
It wasn't one of the
somewhere.
owners. It was actually one of the guys on the brew side. They were supposed to have an owner and their master distiller there, and Sam said that guy didn't show up, so he was
Oh, it was the brewery
one
guy?
of their brewery.
Oh,
guys.
that's
He
all
wasn't-
right.
he wasn't
It's signed
happy.
by somebody.
It's signed by somebody. Sam wasn't happy with it.
That's all right.
Yeah.
But, I mean, it's fantastic. Gold Eagle just got their barrel pick in, and, like, my God, it is so good.
they're a
Because
little
you gave us a
different.
sample in, like, June or July.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
So I've been waiting, like, 6 months for it to come out.
It's
It's
so
amazing.
good. To me, it's just like vanilla frosting. It's so sweet.
Yeah.
And
For a rye,
Oh,
it's
yeah.
like, it's mind blowing. You still get a lot of those. It's a very, the regular Hard Truth Sweet Mash Rye is very floral. It's very similar to like the MGP mash bill rye. But they're always barrel proof, so you get a lot more flavor out of them than like your typical MGP rye. But the Gold Eagle pick is actually a Kentucky rye from like the early days of the distillery.
Yeah, so
Right.
story was it's the same mash bill, it's the same grains, and it's the same distillers. They just distilled 35 barrels at a Kentucky distillery, which they couldn't say which one, but they said it was a big name that everyone would
Yeah.
know. So they distilled 35 barrels there, and that was like their early trial run. They call it their Origin series.
Okay.
So those 35 barrels, I think a third of them were ryes, and they did a third wheated and then a third regular bourbon. So those were distilled 3 years prior to opening up their Indiana distillery, which that's where their 2-year rye comes from. But
Yeah.
it's supposed to be the same mash bill, same grains, same distiller.
Yeah, so your pick is like 5 years?
5 years.
And then what blows me away about the normal offering is that it's a 2-year rye.
Yeah, which
Like-
it does not drink like a 2-year.
No, it could be like you'd think
Could
it
be
was
an
like
8 or 9 year.
yeah,
rye.
It's insane.
That was one of the first ryes that I truly enjoyed. When
Yeah.
we tried it.
Yeah. So I tried it, and at that tasting, and I grabbed Dan, and I was like, if you're going to like any rye, you're
Yeah.
going to like this one.
Yeah. No, that's cool.
What's awesome about that too is we tried it and fell in love with it and bought 5 or 6 cases of it, and then 2 days later Fred Minnick came out with a amazing review on it, and then it was sold out everywhere. So we kind of stocked up on it a little bit, and I think we still have 5 or 6 bottles left from that initial drop. But yeah, we did just get our barrel pick in, and the barrel pick takes it to a whole new level.
Yeah, and the other, because we tried the one of the subsequent batches when we were at Hard Truth in September, and it's just as good.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm hoping that they keep that consistency going.
Yeah, it's for sure a distillery to keep an eye on.
Yeah, and their bourbon should be coming in the near future, they said too. So that'll be worth looking for as well. All right, Dan.
Well, before I go, since Roberto's not here, we'll talk about his pick.
Oh yeah,
He went with Dickel 15.
yeah, which is a good choice.
Probably one of the better values out there for a 15-year whiskey. It's
Absolutely.
normally in the $60, $80 range, somewhere in there.
At least more.
I mean, usually I see it for like 65.
Yeah.
Like I think you guys have it around
I was just
there.
talking like 15-year whiskeys.
Oh,
Mostly
overall,
like
yeah.
$10 a year, you would expect to pay 100 to 150
At
for
least,
a
yeah.
15-year, and the Dickel I think we have for 60,
Yeah.
right around there.
You have, I think you have 2 different ones, right?
I think we sold out of one of them, and the one that we have left is a single barrel.
Yeah.
Not one that we picked, but just like a distiller's pick.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, I mean, it's an unbelievably good whiskey.
yeah.
Well, and it was last year Whiskey Advocate gave the 13-year Dickel?
It was like 2 years in a row. The 13-year Dickel was like top 2.
Right.
Because
It
you've
was
got
number
the special
one
one.
of
It's
the
the like
years.
Whiskey of the Year edition one.
Yeah. I had it. That was gone a long time
Yeah.
ago.
And I got the non-special one, but the 13-year is good. The 15-year is even better in my opinion.
And for $60, it's
Unbeatable.
there's some people that aren't big fans of Dickel's flavor profile, but that's a hell of a
Yeah.
great
I mean,
value.
Lots of haters on the Dickel profile, but I will say, like, once Dickel hits 13, 15, 17 years old, it's completely different than their younger stuff.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, it is similar to like the Jack Daniels thing where you get that like char kind of note, which
Just get like a dried oak note in most of their stuff.
yeah, like I personally love that note. But I know like you're not a particular fan of that, right, Dan? But yeah, once you get into those higher age ranges, that starts to kind of taper off and kind of mellow a bit. And it becomes really, really accessible, I think, in my opinion.
Well, we even tried at Sam's tasting a few weeks ago. They had the Dickel 8-year,
Yeah.
which I never tried, and for $30, that's not a bad value either.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was more of I liked it. It's a $30 bottle, and that'd be a hell of a good mixer for cocktails.
Yeah.
Too,
And
but
it's
easy
like
drinking.
what's kind of crazy about Dickel is that all this stuff is like readily available too.
Oh yeah.
Like, like there's not many other whiskeys that are 15 years old that are on the shelf all the time.
No.
So it's pretty special.
Look at Calumet.
Yeah.
15.
Oh yeah,
It's
I mean
100
Calumet's
and you can find it, but it's $130, $140
right.
a bottle.
Dickel's like half the
Yeah,
price, you know. So yeah, I mean that's a good point. I mean, Calumet's probably the only other one that I can think of that's that old and always on the
Right.
shelf.
The American flag one.
Resilient.
Resilient. There it is.
Oh yeah,
That's usually fairly. I've
It's
seen
usually
that
around like 100, 120.
Yeah, if
Yeah.
you can find it, but it's still way
Yeah.
more expensive.
yeah. We tried the 16-year.
At Sam's?
No, on
Oh.
the show we tried the 16-year.
I think so.
I think
I think it was a
in an
16-year.
episode.
Yeah.
And the bottled and bond.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We tried their 10-year at Sam's event, and I bought a bottle of that that was like $80 for their 10-year, which is still a little high, but it was a pretty damn good
Yeah.
bottle. Well, mine was Jack Bonded, because that was probably the one that surprised me the most, because I don't like Jack Daniel's Old Number 7 at all.
Yeah.
I don't like Gentleman Jack that much. The Jack number 27, the maple barrel finish, I like. That's hard to find and expensive.
Yeah.
And Jack Bonded for $35, I thought was probably one of the best beginner whiskeys you can get.
Yeah.
If you're trying to get into whiskey for $35, you can't go wrong. It's a 700 milliliter bottle, so the value is not as great as some, but not enough to deter you. But it's just a solid. The way I think of that, it's not the same flavor profile, but I think of it like Blanton's. It's just a solid, easy drinking whiskey, and it has the maple, or it has the oak, it has the vanilla flavors to it. And for 30 some bucks, you can't go wrong. Whiskey Advocate gave it 97, which they shouldn't have by any means. That's not a 97 ranking.
I'm going to go on record and say that I agree. I love Jack Bonded so much. It's so
I
good.
do too.
That's one that I'm always going to have on stock too, because people that come over that are getting into whiskey and aren't big, I want to start them off and see what they think of that.
Yeah.
Because if they like that as a pour, then I know they're going to like some of the other pours that I would like to give to them that are going to be harder to find.
Yeah.
And if they don't like that, then it's a $30 pour that I gave somebody, and I don't give a shit.
Yeah.
Like,
I was actually going to pick Jack Bonded as mine, but Dan picked it first, so I let him have it.
be faster on the text, man.
Yeah.
I thought
But
you were hating on Jack Bonded 10 minutes ago.
Yeah, I know.
Because he lost.
No, you.
Oh, no, I was talking good about Jack Bonded.
No, I think that is what's regular Jack's 84 proof.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that bump up to 100 proof, I think, makes all the difference.
Yeah, it's kind of like Makers versus Makers 101.
Yeah.
Makers 101 is so much better.
There's
It's just
probably
a higher
some
proof
barrel
point.
selection going on there, too. Like, I don't think it's just that they raised the proof.
I don't know. I don't know.
I mean, it kind of blows my mind that they didn't do this like 20 years ago.
Yeah.
You know,
Uh-huh.
like almost everybody else has a bottled in bond.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, the market has changed significantly,
Right.
You know, in the
You
last
have to
10
do
years. So
things
they
like
have
that.
to do something,
But
to stay.
I mean, what's Gentleman Jack? Gentleman Jack's a higher proof, but I don't like that nearly.
Not
as-
really. It's 90 something,
Yeah, I think it's
maybe
just
94,
aged a little bit
but
longer.
all they
Maybe it's
do is
selected barrels. I'm not sure about
I think
that,
Gentleman Jack, all they do is not distill it, but filter
that
it
everywhere.
twice.
though. Do they?
I think that's the only difference.
Yeah, it's. I think if you're looking at the Jack line, because Gentleman Jack's $50 or $60 in that range usually, or $50.
I thought it was like
It's
40-ish.
Yeah, it's a little bit more. I don't know if it's that high, but I mean, the Bonded to me was the first Jack product I tried besides really good barrel proof single barrels, where it reminded me of a sipping bourbon.
Yeah.
Something that actually has a lot of flavor, that I can sit there and have a neat pour of and be satisfied.
Yeah.
Which regular Jack never did that for me. Gentleman Jack never did that for me. But the Bonded, you can sit there and actually have a Glencairn pour and be satisfied as a whiskey drinker.
It's not going to leave you disappointed.
No.
It's a solid. We've talked about that a bunch. It's a solid bourbon, and I know we've talked about things. We talk about pricing of, hey, this is good. It's got all your normal bourbon flavors. It's what you'd expect out of a good bourbon, but it's $90 or $100. Well, I can buy 3 Jack Bonded for that.
Yeah.
At that point, it's like, if we're just talking about a good solid, I think that was one of the old elks we talked about was, I think the old elk, just their bourbon. We kind of talked about that because it's a $60 bottle of their bourbon. And it's like, it's a solid bourbon. It's good, but the value at a $30-some bottle of Jack Bonded was better for me. But
Yeah. I mean, it's for the value, it's fantastic. I think, like you said, it's very accessible.
yeah.
For anybody trying to get into whiskey. Especially if you do like Jack Daniels in general. It's like it's got those like reminiscent notes of like the regular number 7, but there's just so much more flavor behind it. I think Roberto's favorite note on it is the bananas Foster.
Yeah.
So like I don't personally get that because I hate bananas. So like I don't get that at all, but I know a lot of people do. But I mean, and that even carries through through like the single barrels and the barrel proof single barrels, are those kind of like what people call banana notes, that a lot of people really enjoy.
And even if you're a Jack hater, it's $30 and it's going to be completely different from what you think it is.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Because I'm a Jack hater.
Yeah, you are. My cousin.
So the Jack hater picks Jack as his bourbon of the year.
Yeah.
That's why it was surprising.
Yeah.
When Jake's like, hey, we're going to do that. We're going to do the triple mash. I'm like, yay, great. Then I tried the bonnet. I'm like, oh, hey, hello.
Mm-hmm.
So
Good.
If something does that, even though it wasn't probably the favorite one I drank, it's probably the most surprising to me.
Mm-hmm.
You know, my cousins were here for the 4th, and then we tried. I brought a bottle of Blanton's over to my grandma's, and then the next day I brought Dickel 15. And I didn't have a bottle of Jack Bonded because I had killed mine. I told my cousin, like, when you go back home, pick one up because it's worth it. And he had to hunt for it a little bit because he lives in upstate New York, and it's not like as readily, or at the time it wasn't as readily available because I think it kept selling out. But he finally found one. He was like, "You were not kidding." It's like, "This is excellent." I was like, "Yeah, dude." It's like, it's probably in my top 10 of like all time whiskeys.
Wow.
I love it. The triple mash is a different story.
I didn't like
not
triple
a
mash.
big fan of the triple mash.
See, I like the triple mash, but I also love single malts.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So the single malt and the triple mash takes over from the bourbon.
Yeah.
Like you're tasting more of a malt whiskey
Yeah.
than a bourbon.
Just so you know, Jake, that party he was talking about where he brought Blanton's the one day and Dickel 15 the next, they made old fashions with Blanton's.
That's fine. Bland's is
Yeah,
not
see?
good. Unless you get sometimes you can find a really, really good single barrel. But most of the time Bland's is just very meh. It's a mixer.
The first one
Honestly,
I ever got was really good.
Uh-huh.
This one that I brought was the second bottle I got, and it was very like mediocre.
So I'm fine with saying this on record. Most of the time, I don't even want to put Blanton's in an old fashioned. It's not even good enough for my old fashions. Like it's a very intro whiskey. It's smooth, and I hate using the term smooth.
Yeah.
It has a little bit of spice, and it's a very cool looking bottle. So if you're a novice and you're looking at a bottle of Blanton's and you're pouring it for yourself, that's a great experience.
Yeah.
Hey, John Wick drinks Blanton's, and John Wick is a badass.
Well, I mean, it's impressive when all you've had is like Basil Hayden.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah,
something like
yeah,
that.
right.
You know?
But
But yeah, I mean, there's so much more.
every whiskey drinker I know that has the selection that you have here, and has expanded their palate to other things out there, does not care for Blanton's at all.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Like one of the big things at Sam's tasting event is he saved up all of his Blanton's allocations, and I didn't. I'm like, you know what? I'm not gonna grab one. I had an opportunity to go grab a thing for one. I'm like, I have a bottle. I have a backup. I don't need to stockpile it. It's fine. And mainly one of us for display because my barrel in my house is a Buffalo Trace mash bill 2. So I have a bottle of the most common mash bill 2 you can find. So I'm not going to stockpile. If I could stockpile Elmer's on it, I would. But it's a little bit harder if I come by an Elmer too.
Yeah.
Usually I keep one because it's if like somebody's kind of new to whiskey, it's something you can be like, oh, try this, and like they're probably gonna like it.
Yeah, or they recognize it. They're Blanton's.
Yeah, it's like, okay, you can try this, and like I know I'm not gonna waste something really good. You know?
Right.
So yeah.
Jake, what about you? I'm guessing probably E.H. Taylor.
So I think I'm gonna throw you guys for a loop here, and I think once I say it, you'll agree. But something that you're not expecting. My whiskey of the year would probably be a barrel-proof single barrel Castle and Key Rye.
Restoration Rye, single barrels.
That's
Those are
a
good.
good choice.
Yours? For sure ours. For sure ours.
Again, unbiased.
Yeah. But I will say the single barrel that we picked, shout out to Wilson. He's our Castle and Key rep. So he brought us 3 samples from Castle and Key, and we picked out of those 3. And then after we picked and we told him our selection, he said, "No, this is your selection." He pulls out another sample from his pocket, and it was a barrel that he drilled into at the distillery, that, you know, only he had access to, and he wanted it to go to us because we have a good relationship with him. But that barrel is very good, and it has a lot of that vanilla frosting and sweetness that we were talking about with the Hard Truth, and they kind of remind me of each other.
Yeah.
And it's one of those pours where at first you really like it, and then you pour yourself a second glass and then a third glass, and it's like, holy shit, this is unbelievable.
Yeah.
But I've also had probably 3, 4, 5 other single barrels of Castle and Key barrel proof rye, and they're all very different but very good in their own way. And I'm not a huge fan of the bourbon. I think it's still a little young, and they have some time until it kind of catches up in age and matures. Yeah. But the ryes that I've tried, the different single barrels, are just unbelievable.
Yeah, the batch 2 bourbon was pretty good. And then I haven't heard great things about the subsequent batches that they've released.
Yeah, batch 1 was very meh. It was kind of bready, and batch 2 was a little bit better. And I thought the weeded was not too good.
I thought the weeded was. I tried the weeded at your place, and
I was gonna say I didn't want to like bash them too much, but I wasn't a fan of the weeded. I thought it was just tasted like white bread.
Okay.
But the rye is a different story. The ryes are ridiculous.
Yeah. So the regular restoration rye is good.
The regular is very good.
It's really good. Mm-hmm. And then your guys' pick is like very much that the floral end of the ryes with
floral,
like
and also a lot of sweetness.
Mm-hmm. You do get some of that spice, that you expect out of a rye, but it's not in like the like how some of the like younger ryes can be like overpowering with the spice.
Yeah, you get more sweetness, and it's more like on the side of the palate. It coats your cheeks and just runs back into the back of your mouth. But
yeah, did you do a blind with that one time?
We did, and I can't remember what it was. I don't remember because that was one of our first and early blind tastings. But I know at one point we did throw that in there, and it was against something really good too. And I'm pretty sure they were very close, or the restoration beat it out.
Because I had bought one when you guys released it, because I loved the regular restoration rye. Then after that blind, I bought a second one because I was like, yeah, this is really good.
Yeah, it's funny. Their ryes are good, and I'm not a gin fan, but I take their gin above their bourbon.
Their gin is really good.
Yeah.
Because when I was down at the distillery, they gave you a sample of rye. I think they gave you a sample of their bourbon, and then the rest were gins. I'm like, well, they did this because they're trying to sell something, and they're going to sell their gin because their gin is good.
It is really good. They're not just trying to sell it; they're trying to show you how good their gin is.
I mean, there's been several gins that I've been really impressed by. The Castle and Key's one of them, and the
Watershed
was fantastic too. Very much the like Western style gin, not like a London dry.
No.
It's very like fruity and floral, and not so juniper heavy.
Right.
Yeah.
More modern.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, it's been the holidays around here lately that we decided it'd be a nice time to have a holiday pour.
Yep.
Unfortunately, Roberto couldn't get his schedule to work for this, but we've been a little inconsistent as of late with the holidays. We'll probably have a few more inconsistent weeks here coming up, but then we'll be back on a new schedule. We've had a few things going on as well.
Yeah, I think mid-January we'll probably start the second season. I think we're gonna try and shake things up a little bit. I don't know how much, but we're gonna figure out our strategy for the next year.
Yep.
So I think this has been a lot of fun this year.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean, it's probably about this
look
time.
Forward to every week.
Yeah, it's probably about this time last year you really started pushing us on this because it was probably February we started.
Yeah, I think the first episode was in February.
There's been some nights we got hammered here.
Yeah.
Not including the last time Jake was on one.
I was gonna say every episode.
Yeah, that was rough.
That
was all my fault too.
The best part was I got really hammered and told Jake I could sell 4 cases of whiskey in one night.
And then he showed up the next week, and
I think I showed up that Friday. I think we didn't record on a Wednesday. I showed up on a Friday. I did not sell 4 cases. I sold almost close to 2, but
that's pretty good for
all I know is
pop-up tastings.
The rep beside me, she's like, how long have you been doing this? And I'm like, just trying it out tonight. How long have you been doing this? 5 years. Oh, okay. Well,
yeah.
We'll see. It was fun.
Which, if you're sleeping on that Whiskey Acres barrel pick at Gold Eagle, it is excellent.
Yeah.
It's so good. One of the top questions that both of you guys get, or responses, is like, I don't know about them, because you tried it 2 years ago or something. It's not the
everyone
same.
says I've had Whiskey Acres. I'm not a fan, and I'm like, well, you haven't had this barrel. And
young distilleries, it takes time to grow, and it's we talk about it all the time. Why is Pappy 12? Why is all the Pappy so hard to find? Well, it takes a long ass time to get that mash bill and get that flavor profile that way. Mm-hmm. If everyone could do it, you wouldn't have those bottles that are impossible to find.
Right.
Yeah.
Not everyone can do it because it takes a long time and a lot of money to get there. And Buffalo Trace has been around for a long time, and they have a lot of money. They can do that.
Yeah.
But give younger distillers a chance to grow because stuff continues to change and get better. So
yeah, I mean, like a good rule of thumb too is that barrel proofs are usually much better than whatever standard release. You just get so much more flavor because you're not watering it down to cut it.
Well,
to
that
whatever
that
proof,
and new distilleries, they're trying to make a name for themselves, so they're trying to really hunt for their best barrels to get their best barrels out as single barrels. And when you don't have a lot of quantity, you're taking your best quality and taking it out of what you would normally blend in together.
Yeah,
because you need to be able to showcase these things.
Yep.
But as you have more time to grow and produce, you can start those single barrels that were your best of the best are now your average. Mm-hmm. And 5 years from then, you're putting out better stuff. So any young distillery is going to be that way. It's fun to see the flavor grow. So hopefully I don't get drunk and run my mouth and get stuck selling at a liquor store.
You're welcome anytime.
All right. Last episode of the year. We will be releasing some other content. So keep an eye on Instagram. I've got 4 different cocktails for the winter lined up that I need to do, but I've been lazy and haven't put them out yet. And then I think we're gonna do reels of each of our favorites the next couple weeks, and then we'll be back.
Is Jack Daniels gonna sue me for doing that?
And then hopefully like mid-January we'll be back with our first episode of season 2. Though I don't think I'm gonna actually classify it as season 2.
I might as well. Season 2. That's what we're gonna call season 2.
Yeah.
Season 2 is for the Nookie.
Season 2 for the Nookie. All right.
All right. Jake, socials.
Yeah, so find us at Bourbon Matters on Facebook, Bourbon Matters, Instagram at Bourbon Matters. Follow us, like us, YouTube, Bourbon Matters also. Which I should note, this is not going to be a video episode because my PC won't work. So this is audio only. It will be on YouTube though, just an audio format. No better time to tell you than the end of the episode, but you know.
Yeah, my Pappy shirt's not going to come into play.
Yeah.
Jake, socials.
Instagram, Gold Eagle Wine. Facebook, Gold Eagle Spirits. Search Gold Eagle Wine everywhere. You'll find us. goldeaglewine.com. See our inventory and download our app on Apple App Store and the Google Play Store.
Yeah, the app is awesome.
Search Gold Eagle Wine on there. You can find our app, download it. You can see our inventory, purchase right on the app. We'll hold it until you come in.
And get event tickets.
Yeah, events too. See all the
It's the
upcoming
best way to
events.
do it.
Definitely. Oh yeah.
Nice. And also, if you guys haven't realized, the home of the best single barrel picks of all time are at Gold Eagle.
Hey.
Yeah.
Awesome.
If you want to, we talk in depth about your single barrels in our previous episode, which I think was the Whiskey Acres barrel pick episode.
We did the Whiskey Acres one, and then we did the Knob Creek barrel selection.
So I think we talk about both of them, and yeah, you guys never miss. So
Nice. Thank you.
Awesome. All right.
All right.
Cheers.
Till next year.